Welcome back to Starting Out Solitary. I'm Willow, and this week we are discussing our thoughts on channeling spirits. For me, channeling spirits means voluntarily opening up the channel to my body, kind of like a vessel, and not necessarily just my body, but it can be within a protective circle or any tools or things that I am holding at the time, and momentarily allowing the spirits to enter. And during that time, impart me with some knowledge, wisdom, insight, messages, inspiration, or ideas, even, just to name a few things that spring to mind. For me, the words spirit or spirits embodies deities such as the god and goddess, or gods and goddesses, archangels, angels, guides or spirit guides, spirits of the spirit realm, or nature spirits even, again, just to name a few things that spring to mind. But I believe that we all have the ability to channel spirits. Yes, for some it may be easier than others, and it may be because it is an ability they've discovered while from a very young age, and have nurtured that ability and nourished it. And also, having that support network where rather than them being dismissed or questioned about their abilities, they are encouraged. Then there are those who may have experienced life-changing experiences and have realized that they can channel spirits. For others, there may be blockages as to why it may be a little bit harder for them to channel spirits. One of those can be lacking self-confidence or doubting themselves. Another can be fear. And another thing can be also maybe perhaps as they've gone through life and shared their abilities with others, taking on board other people's negative opinions or judgments, or, questioning their ability that, would hinder or block them from using or working with their abilities. But I feel that most importantly, if there is trouble channeling any spirits, the desire and the need to and the want to devote and dedicate yourself to channeling spirits, is the key factor here. A little bit like, cooking and singing. There are those who are gifted from a very young age, singing, cooking, they have that passion, there is something within them. And then there are those who want to sing and cook and feel that, they're not good enough, for a lack of a better way to describe it. But, can take lessons, practice, dedicating yourself, giving yourself time, to, I guess, with anything in life, to achieve what it is that we want to achieve. So as long as there is that devotion and, wanting to grow and enhance, the abilities, I feel that everyone can most definitely cook and, and sing. For me, one of the blockages was doubting myself and lack of confidence. I remember from a very young age, I can see, hear and feel things. And I remember family and friends, all the adults gathering around and sharing stories of someone seeing a healer and what would happen at that session, along with someone seeing a clairvoyant, or going to someone who could read their coffee cup. Another person being able to see and hear spirits. But I remember them always saying that these people were gifted with these abilities from birth. They were chosen ones, and not everybody had these, these abilities. I never really gave it much thought when I was much younger, or never really questioned it too much until I was probably about 10 or 11. At this time, I was a Christian, and I had questions such as, what makes someone chosen? Why are they chosen over another individual? What abilities do they have? How does it feel to have these abilities, that they're using? And what is the purpose behind all of this? So with very limited information available out there, I would ask family and family friends these questions, the adults, and see what answers they would come up with. But they would always say these people were gifted and, with these sorts of abilities. But I remember going to the school library and reading up as much as I could on this subject, watching documentaries and movies as well. But I remember I wanted to channel spirits. Now, hopefully I can remember to get back to that story and share with you kind of how it all started. Another contributing factor for me was fear. So growing up again, in the Christian belief system, the devil and negative spirits and entities and superstition and ways that we should protect, the ways that we would protect ourselves, so that's, that we wouldn't be influenced by negative spirits or anything like that, So there was a fear factor there from the outset. And then, fast forwarding, I'm now practicing pagan. I remember when I first discovered this path and reading up on it, reading things such as protection, how important it was, how to protect and why to protect, and all that kind of stuff, which to a degree, is important. It is important to to protect yourself, especially if you're channeling spirits, but not just only, while channeling spirits. I think protection on a daily basis, creating a routine, I guess, to protect yourself against many things, as we all know, is very important. And another fear factor for me was, how would I know if it was a low-level entity? How would I know if it was a negative entity? And how would I, because I know some of them can be deceitful, how would I stop it from channeling? How would I get rid of it and, not having too much experience? So I guess feeding that fear. But again, as I've said, protection is very important. So going back to when I was 10 or 11, I wanted to start channeling, and I did the best I could with what I had. So I kind of went with my gut feeling, and after reading a little bit up on it, I knew that I needed to get into a meditative state or a trance state. For me, meditation, I was meditating back then, so I decided to use meditation as a focal point and help me to reach the level or the state in order for me to channel spirits. I did a lot of protection work using light, and I still do to this day, but I would constantly, envelope myself, I guess, with light as protection, and also call on Archangel Michael to watch over me while I was doing this as well. I would burn a lot of candles, so another thing that I would use to put me in that trance state was just watching the candle, the candle flame flicker and moving left to right, up and down, which can even happen to me now too. Just looking at the candle can take me to that trance state. And so it took a lot of practice. It most definitely wasn't in the first go, so I can't remember time-wise how long it was, but I kind of would just work through it. Yeah, there were times where I would get frustrated and then again, doubt myself. I'm not a chosen one, and, if there was anything I could hear, feel, or see, I would question myself. Again, I'm not a chosen one. I couldn't possibly be seeing or feeling all of this or hearing all of this. Who am I? All that crap, really. But it took a lot of practice, so I wanted to dedicate myself to that. Now I may open circle as a form of protection. I have even dedicated a spell candle using one of these as well, and in it I've spelt it for protection, and also to help me amplify and make that that direct channel with spirits too, and crystals. So when I was about 10 or 11, I had a very small collection of crystals, and I used them at that time just as a focal point where I would just gaze in it or just holding it with my eyes closed. Now most of the times I have two crystals that I'm holding generally. One is a grounding and a protective stone, so a hematite or an agate, depending on how you say it. And the other may be a amethyst that I have. I have a spirit quartz, a fluorite, or a clear quartz, just to name a few crystals from the top of my head that I may use. So one of them is basically to help me establish that connection and hold that connection and amplify that connection, and the other is to ground me and protect me as well. Although I feel that the crystal that I'm holding to amplify also has that protection within it as well. Sometimes I may sprinkle a circle using salt around me and sit in the middle. Sometimes I may light the candle that I have dedicated for spirit work. And other times I may just place 4 or 5 candles around me or crystals around me. So again, going with what feels right for me at that time to use. As it's happening, the best way that I can describe it is kind of like when you're driving on autopilot. You can be driving for 15 minutes and all of a sudden you're at a set of lights and you snap out of it and you think, how did I get here? I just drove through 6 set of lights, 2 T intersections and 3 roundabouts, and I'm safely here. That is the best way that I can describe it. Still having that sense of control, and at the same time not. That's the best way that I can describe it. For me, most of the times I can hear a voice or voices. They're coming from a love and light place. I know it's going to sound all love and light, but they're coming from a love and light. Sometimes the voice is sweet and soothing and, uses the perfect words and nothing to, how I speak. Sometimes they can be more direct, but they're still loving. I guess kind of like with people, who we love, our family and our friends. There are those who are more nurturing than others, and it's the tact, I guess, but it's still coming from a place of love. So love and light. I've never had a bad or a negative experience, I must say. during that. What else did I want to share? Having a pen and paper next to me is quite handy. Sometimes I'm feeling the urge as I'm channeling to write down, and it can be sentences and pages worth of stuff. Sometimes I don't quite understand it. It takes me a little while longer. Say for example, a couple of days, a couple of weeks to kind of make sense of what the message was all about. Other times it may be just words or numbers or symbols as well. And again, for me, what works the best is putting all of my notes away. And so not immediately referring to them, but putting them away. And after I've grounded myself or given myself some time, I'll go back and have a read. And if things that aren't making sense to me, I like to look into it and see what the connection is. And I've been quite amazed with the insight that I've been given during this process. Sometimes I may use a candle to channel the spirits, and through that I'm able to, I guess, read through the flame. Messages and symbols, might pop up. Words, again, I may hear something. So that's another tool that I may use, or a crystal. So as I said, I'm holding 2 crystals. Sometimes I may have a third one in front of me that I may use again as a focal point to help me. But regardless, I do write down best that I can on things that I remember, after my session, or again, sometimes during my session, I'm feeling drawn to just go with the flow and see what happens. So I guess a little bit like automatic writing too. There are others that may experience an out-of-body experience. I haven't experienced that or felt the urge to physically move or verbalize, I guess, what they're channeling, but that's never happened to me. And I guess the reason why I'm mentioning that is because there are different ways in which people are expressing whatever it is that they're channeling, or how it is. So it can be different for others, because I know personally sometimes I've read or I've heard someone talk and explain their experience or share their experience, and I haven't experienced the same thing. So sometimes I say to myself, I didn't have that, so maybe I don't have the ability to, or which is rubbish anyway. So I just wanted to share that as well. Grounding is very important, because I find that if I'm not grounding, I'm still up there, and I can be airy-fairy, I guess, but there will be a moment where I will crash, and crash hard, whether it be exhaustion or a headache, or feeling a little bit sick. So grounding is important. The ways that I ground are maybe barefoot outside is one of my go-to things. Putting my hands in the soil outside, walking around, getting my feet and hands all dirty. Another is eating something. For me, I tend to go to breads. I guess it's heavier for me, but celery, I love celery. I know there are a lot of people who don't like celery, but I guess because it is a root vegetable, I will eat celery or carrot, or anything like that, but I may choose to eat a form of grounding. Okay, I can hear the little ones getting a little bit restless. So that's pretty much all my thoughts on this week's topic. Please feel free to share your experience. I would love to know. Until my next video, sending you so much love.